right, Coach, back for another round here. And it's fun to go through, the big picture. Now we're talking about some of the fundamentals, talked about block destruction last week, and now getting to the real part of actually finishing and completing the play with the tackle. So let you kind of get your opening intro out there and we'll kind of find our way.
Yeah, it's funny, like lately been on a lot of conversations with developing teams, developing programs, and when it's an appropriate way or when is it appropriate to start tackling with students. And as you kind of alluded to, this is the thing. Football in general is the most technically sophisticated sport. When you think about like baseball and basketball and all the golf, whatever you got, the idea of football comes down to, are you willing to run through someone's face? Are you willing to run through somebody's body and do the thing? And the thing is tackling. Or if you're on the offensive side of the ball, avoiding tackling, right? So, I think it's what makes football football. It's what makes it the gladiator sport and why it's the number one sport in the country, right? So I think developing tackling systems that are sound, that are healthy, and then encourage students to participate. I think it's the way forward with more participation and better results on the field, right? And so I think we've had some great systems over the years, and I know the ideas of how to tackle and the styles of tackling have changed over the years. But it goes back to like we said a few weeks ago. In the end, you've got to get that guy down. So as long as they're doing the thing,
I'm a good test case for you, Coach, because I'm an offensive guy at heart. I'm a visual guy, right? So if I'm sitting down the first day at Holy Cross or New Hampshire, right? Like, talk to me about, is there visual? Is there pictures? Is there a thing on the wall? What is the first clip that comes into your brain of, hey, you've got this freshman walking in. How are we going to teach them, the program style?
Yeah. So, well, to be honest, the first thing, I've already kind of said it once, and it was on the opening PowerPoints that we would do, is all the pretty things we could have in any of the schools we've worked at. It doesn't matter unless you're willing to run through someone's face. It's such a crass way of saying it, but we started meetings with just how violent the game had to be and how violent we needed to be. But we needed to do it in a safe manner so that we had you for the season. So we had you for the years to come. So we would impress upon the student very early head safety and keeping your head out of contact to the best of our ability. That we were getting away from, hey, bite the ball. Right? We weren't going to say that stuff. Now, this didn't mean that we didn't say, hey, get your head across, because there is some conflicting styles of teaching tackling now. Like, hey, get your head out of it, or hey, don't get your head across the contact. But the goal was to encourage the students to just snap their heads, to behaviorally just get their head out of the contact and get into a profile tackle. And that's where we would start. So just like we do with block destruction, where we start with shock and lock, right? It's man to man, it's me versus you, it's in short confined areas. We would start with profile tackling. And so we would cut down the space. We would show them some goal line film. We would go to the NFL. We would find clips of and moments where, like, that's it. That's the moment. That's Mike Singletary ripping through on goal line. It's somebody, a butt gets jumping over a pile. These are the moments where head to head, you could see it about to happen. You could see the thing about to happen. And so we would show them that, and then we would show them the way we wanted it done and how we would train or talk about it going forward. So with the profile,
go ahead.
Yeah, so like in the profile tackle, the best way to think about it, like I already said, is to think in the terms of small confines, and it's my body versus his body, and it's my leg drive versus his leg drive. Right, so we can't be lunging, we can't be diving at the ground, we can't, all that stuff. We're going to be thinking of using our upper quadrants, our chest, and we're going to get as much surface as we can on that man's body. And we would start with and show that not only does my body have to be on his body, we would want to lower, make sure our chin was below his chin. We would say our eyes are looking up and through. I think we would talk about this before we got online, about the up before out kind of mindsets. We're going to have to use our ass, we have to use our legs to drive through this contact. So to your point, if we're an institution right now, we were showing them tackling, we'd start off with the theme of how violent it's going to be. Then we would say, okay, and this is where the violence really shows itself in profile tackling. And we would define profile tackling as face-to-face contact or head-to-head contact. And we would just kind of say it like that so that we could, and so when we showed them film of these old school tackles, we could illustrate also the desire for us to not have head-to-head contact. And we would talk to them about why we would say, all right, we're going to be tackling with half a man. We're going to be talking with our head out of contact. We're going to be using our upper quadrant. We're going to throw our uppercuts up before we go out. And then we're going to drive for 5 with our legs, if that makes sense at all.
For sure. And Coach, my thoughts going on, like, these are some great points. And how are you going to walk out from the classroom to the field, right? With
That's
some of
right.
the different equipment options, right? I mean, I think of
That's
the heavy bag, they're pushing it down and you're driving for 5 through the old, gym punching bag, or sometimes you're able to get on, right, the sled, right, and actually
That's right.
fit
Yeah.
through some of
Yeah.
that
That's
with
right.
the hip extension.
Yeah.
Or even totally, hey, you're in the back cow pasture behind the middle school. Like some of these guys could have
That's
the
right.
hand shield, right, and you're
That's
rapping
right.
and running,
That's
or do you
right.
have a crash pad behind that, right, to
That's right.
simulate the finish? Like, how are
That's right.
you working at different times of the year to take care of that physical toll?
That's right. So I think the best solution to, or the best means to developing a great tackling unit or tackling team is to be doing it throughout the year. So when I've spoke at clinics over the last couple of years, or even with our teams, we would embrace tackling in small volume in small areas right in January and February, because it is the most unnatural thing in all sports, right? I could tell kids all the time, you're not walking down the hallways of your local high school just dropping dudes in the lockers and stuff, right? So this isn't something that we're doing. So to not do it year round, that skill that's so critical to good defensive football, good team football, it's going to degrade over time. So to make it an everyday type of a habit, and again, can't do it every day, but can you work it into some of the lower volume days in training where we're not, maybe a leg day, right? Where maybe it's the finishing drill for a leg day or something like that, whatever, right? So initially, we want to work on the approach, right? So if we're working in January and February, we're saying we're gonna slow down, we're gonna close down the distance between me and my opponent, and we're gonna work on getting into the position of a profile tackle. So we're literally just gonna work on a short drop. Again, and they teach us this language: long stride into a short stride, right? And we're going to get into a near foot position, half man, with my head tilted just outside of contact. And that's it. That's it. We've worked on the approach of tackling and into a profile tackle where it is going to be body on body, chest on chest. Again, working to get our head out of it, right? And we're doing that over January and February and perhaps March. And then at some point in there, in this weight room, because again, let's just assume we're outside, we'll bring in those hand shields. We'll just bring them right into the weight room. And we'll just stuff them on top of some cabinets or whatever. And we'll say, okay, now grab these. We've worked on the approach. Now with this approach, work into the finish of throwing the uppercuts and getting your chest on his chest. And then to your question earlier about when we show the illustrations, we would say, hey, now you're going to climb the tree. We're going to shimmy up this tree. We're going to drive our legs. We'll over exaggerate this leg drive so that we can drive for 5 and drive the man back. It's kind of like shock and lock. We're going to shock, lock. We're going to create separation. We're going to accelerate our feet. Same thing with tackling, especially profile tackling. I'm going to long stride, short stride. I'm going to get in this near leg position. I'm going to throw those uppercuts. I'm going to go quadrant on quadrant, chest on chest. I'm going up before I go out. And I'm going to climb this tree to get my legs involved. That makes sense. So,
Coach, I'm over here cheesing and
yeah,
grinning because I got the worst poker face in America. But there's just clips playing in my brain from the Teach Tapes library. There's one just from this offseason of Mike McDonald with the Seahawks. And you got 2 DBs where they're starting back to back, and you got to randomize to one of those 3 disc cones, right? But they're turning.
Yeah.
No one's on offense. No one's on defense. They're just going long stride to short stride, firm foot, right? Same foot, same shoulder, whatever the word is. And they're literally finishing tip to tip. Like,
that's right.
They're not wearing any pads at all, but they're stopping the point right there.
That's right.
The other end of the spectrum. So we just talked about taking the air, right? Getting to the final fit. The Chiefs with Spags are starting with, a weighted down pop up or heavy bag, however you want to say it, but they've got 2 crash bags stacked on top, right? So you have a longer runway. They're literally pre-fit up before out and running over the top of the crash pads.
Great. That's great job.
To show like, man, I'm going to take it all the way to the ground. There's no wear and tear in my body. You got a double runway with the crash pad. So
that's right.
Just giving validation to the points you're bringing up is awesome.
Yeah, because the thing is, if you can design and develop some drills where the contact has been diminished, right? You're teaching them the proper technique, proper safety before you have to actually go do it. And so to your point,
truth, right?
Right. Like I was saying to these students, I was saying that speaking in high school last week, I was talking with someone last night at a basketball game. Your son either is going to hit somebody or he's not, right? It's either there or it isn't. So put him in a position where he feels confident that he can deliver the hit. And if he can't just do it yet, he's not going to be, embarrassed out of participating in football. Because this is the moment, right? If the student won't tackle, if he can't take the tackle, if he can't get run over, right, he's probably not going to participate, right? So this is the thing. This is the thing we're building, right? And so to do it over January, to do it, you hit 2 separate ways. I hit 2 separate ways. right? We're working on long stride, short side approach. We're getting into the position with our eyes up, our chest up, the whole thing, right? You're talking from a sit position and running the feet. Now we put them together, and we are now in maybe February, March, April, where we brought the crash pad in, and we've got the long stride, short side approach. We deliver the contact, no helmet, no shoulder pads, and I drive them onto that crash pad. And if we're doing that January, February, March, April, yeah, in college, you're already in spring ball, maybe you're through spring ball, but you can see where these kids haven't degraded the skill of tackling. You've given them an environment where they continue to develop that skill, and it's not just being lost to time.
And I'll take it even further backwards, coach. My dad was a head high school football coach, and he wouldn't let me play youth football or Pop Warner because he didn't want it to be a bad experience and take away from that later in life opportunity. If you've got guys who are listening to this and hearing it, like, take your time on shock and lock, take your time on eating up ground before the tackle, right? If you can do this, my daughter could do it to play flag football. You know what I mean? Like, it's all relating.
Yeah, I was talking with the flag football coach, director of flag football league around here just last night, and he is teaching tackling in a flag football league because he knows if these students are going to eventually join their high school program, he wants them to have that
starting point,
the starting point, that language. And this goes back to what we talked about weeks ago. The first week is like, are you creating a language and systems that the kids could have throughout the course of time in a year, irregardless of transfers, irregardless of staff moving on, but you have your way of doing it that is a thread through the year, into the season, right? You do that, and the performance is going to improve. I know I mentioned to you before that, part of different groups, research groups, whatever, where we taught tackling, and we were very specific. Now, whether or not you embrace the hawk tackling, which I know we've got film of, or other versions of it, or you don't, teaching tackling and having a style and a language with which the team understands and that you can pinpoint on film and you could drill is going to make them first better tacklers. They'll naturally be safer at it, and then their participation will just skyrocket. When we were part of a different group and we reduced some concussive hits, we also improved our tackling performance, and that year we happened to be undefeated. Right? Is it coincidental? Perhaps, but year over year, different institutions. I think that when you have language, when you have systems in place, it does lead to better performance.
Banked reps, confidence, right? You said it last episode. If you think, you stink, right? So
That's right.
all of those things keep piling into this. And coach, that's a lot of profile. Like, hey, you're in a phone booth, right? This is Jalen Carter swallowing up the running back in the backfield. It's Jack Campbell coming downhill to meet ISO, right?
That's right.
Right, and we're tight confines. Bring me out into the space here, the 3-over-2, the bubbles, fill in the alley as a quarter safety. Like, talk to me about the angle and the little guys in space.
So, like, if you get in whatever terms you want to use, so we say profiles when we're going to go face to face, then, we say angle is when we're out there, when we're choosing speed over power, right? We're on the perimeter drill here, right? And these are easy reps. Right. These reps are you're stealing, not to get too creative, because we're all doing 7-on-7 year round. We're all watching our guys approach the bubble, approach the hitch, approach whatever route they're seeing, and in chewing up that turf and chewing up that distance and chasing the near hip. So when we talked about those perimeter tackles, we talked about angle tackle. It's probably the common way everyone talks about it. And we would say, hey, what we'd be looking for is, in the bigger lesson, was the leverage maintained on my opponent. Right? Was I outside in, or was I inside out? Right? And there's terms over the year where, hey, we're going to run the banana, we're going to do this or that. Personally, I always was a fan of just, hey, we're tracking that hip, and we're going to go to where it's at. Right? We're not going to go to where it's going to be. We're going to go to where it's at, and it's just a little easier than saying, hey, run the banana. Right? So when we're doing these drills and we're eating up the grass, all we're looking to do is simply chase the near hip and take that last step, take that extra step as you drive through the thigh board. So now we're off of the upper quadrant, right? And now we're through the thigh boards of the opponent, right? And we're going to take that extra step, because just like we did in profile, we want to try to get into that drive to 5 mentality, where I'm going to take as much power that I can generate from my hips and my legs, and I'm going to try to drive this opponent backwards. We're not in a chase tackle where we're hoping just to swipe and knock it down. We're not necessarily leaving our feet and lunging. Okay. What we're trying to do is get into the hip and get into the body. It just might be at a little lower entry point, than it was when we were goal line face to face, right? Now we're going to be chasing him at his speed and all that. He's running away from me. I'm just going to try to get as much as that upper quadrant of mine through his thigh board and disrupt his running mechanics. If I can do that and drive my legs and knock him back, I got a shot. And I'll tell you this, I mentioned it, my former coworker of mine, Garrett, that and he was really great at emphasizing this. And I know he did it with Sean Mack prior to Coach Santos taking over, but he would really celebrate good misses, right? He would celebrate that, hey, on these perimeter tackles, as I'm tracking down this hip inside out, as I'm cutting off as I'm chewing up the grass, if I go to take that last step, that extra step, and maybe I miss, but the ball carrier went backwards, I stopped his forward progress.
Coach, now we're talking gunner, punt coverage. Now I can talk for days. Now we're talking about cutting the wide side. Me and Garrett are on the same page there for sure.
That's right. That's right. And you know, if you got good pursuit, right? And if you we talked about culture before, like how do you define culture? What do I see on film? Everyone's running the ball. They run with their hair on fire. Great. We've got culture. We got buy-in. Right?
Yeah, it's Brendan Schooler, Matt Slater, those guys, right?
That's right.
Out in the wide open.
That's right.
I'm speaking using other people's quotes and words through me to, channel these teach tapes reps out. But Nick Rollis, who'd been with Jonathan Gannon in Philly and in Arizona, there's a tackling clip of him talking about cutting the engine, right? You're talking about going through the thigh boards, like accelerating through that, like disrupt his running mechanics. It's exactly the same thing. And
that's right. Well, I mean, let's take it back to your question you asked earlier. Now let's go back to, let's just say it's January, February, March. How do we do this drill? You mentioned the cone drill, right? Where they kind of come around the cone and they fit in. Well, now you just take that same 4-cone drill, or maybe it's a little diamond drill, and you get everyone to pick a cone. They don't know which cone they're going to pick, but if they come around the same cone, mirror each other, right? Hey, profile, and they finish in the profile position. They pick opposite cones, right? And the offensive player has to stay on his side. Only the defensive player can run through the middle. Now you're in an angle position, and you can, in that weight room, in the high school hallway, out on the cornfield, whatever, you can get a lot of that work done, right? Of understanding my position, my leverage, and the technique I want to use in small ranges, right? We used to say, listen, this is a low volume day. Nothing can be more than 5 yards. Nothing. So how are you going to work angle tackle within 5 yards? Well, we stole it from Chris Ash. I'm sure he stole it from somewhere else, but it was the Rutgers sumo tackling when Chris Ash was there. Sumo tackling. And I don't know where the name came from. It's not sumo,
no
not wrestling.
Knows, yeah.
But we called it sumo. We called it that for like the last 10 years. But simple, low volume, low player load, and it reinforces the technique and the body positioning of finding my opponent and knowing what situation I'm in. And it goes, again, I'll keep going back to it, and I'll pound the drum forever, is if you can get everybody in the team and the staff to talk like that. Hey, we're in a profile position. We are going to long stride, short stride, uppercuts, drive for 5, right? The whole thing. Hey, we are in angle position. We're in a leverage position, right? Sprint to get in the mix, right? Set up your shot, take your shot, right? The 3 S's of good tackle, right? Sprint, set it up, take your shot. And we're going to go through the thigh board. Now we're going to drive for 5, right? And hey, don't be slow, be fast. If you think you stink, take your shot, right? It's all good, right? Like if you have those ways of saying things and you commit to teaching it year round, you're a better performing tackling team. And then, you got profile done, you got angle done. All right, now just throw you and me in there together, Steve, and we got our tackling little buddy. Now we're working on vice tackling, right? Maybe I land in a profile position and the guy jump cuts me, and now you're over my back, you're over the top of me, and you're knocking him down. Or he's in between the two of us, or maybe the sideline's my teammate. We're working vice tackling, and then you take that to the end.
Stacking opportunities, right? Like
that's right. Yeah.
You don't have to have some brand new drill. Like, hey, add the finishing component, right?
That's
like,
right.
That's where it does develop from January through August to November. And it makes a ton of sense to me of like, this is not something you do in your day-to-day life. Like it's a mentality, and hey, we need small doses for a long exposure.
That's right. And then think about, we got summer coming up right now. And some teams are on campus. Some smaller schools won't see their guys till August. Why can't they do this? I'm sitting in a little room right now. I could do a tackling drill right here, right now with my 10-year-old. Right? Why can't I do that? Why can't I share that film of what you're saying and give my team small drills, non-consequential? No one's going to get hurt. They could do it with their siblings. They could do it with their parents. it just reinforced the mechanics of tackling. And then we get into preseason camp, and maybe I got them at a high school level, but we're doing 2-a-days. We're still allowed to do that. But I can't lose these guys. You just recycle the drills and keep allowing them to refine that tackling, because in the end, it's all going to come down to whether or not we could do the thing, right? And if they've got, to your point, thousands of reps at it, and they're low risk, high return, we've got a good product on our hands.
And Coach, thankfully, this feels like a million years ago, but you're talking about, doing a drill in your office. Like, I thought about COVID. Like, there's a lot of good work during that time where we were all detached from each other. Like,
that's right.
We've got to find a way. Like, there is no excuse when we all come back to the real world that we just took 4 or 5 months off, right? So, like, you have to be able to breadcrumb that out the appropriate way, whether, hey, you got 2 weeks of vacation and you got to come in on OTAs in the summer, or you're D2, D3 and your kids don't show up till the middle of August, you're still building that connection, that relationship with them when there's distance there. And Coach, just for, I think, next week, we can build in some of the vice and chase, because that's going to come into ball disruption, right? That second man in, whether I'm punching from the front or whether I'm taking a peanut punch through the back of that ball exposure. Like, I would love for you to just kind of have your coup de grace of like tackling. If there's a motif, or if there's something, like, you got to leave no doubt of like who you are in that moment, how would you, put a cap on profile and angle tackling for today?
I mean, I think if you're going to get into coaching cliches, right? Profile tackle is body on body, driver 5, right? If we're going to do, like, if that's what you're looking for, right? Profile tackle, body on body, driver 5. If you're doing and talking about angle tackle, perimeter tackling, we're talking about the 3 S's: sprint, set it up, take your shot. Don't worry about the miss, just take your shot. Right? So you get some little like coaching things.
Give me the gut response now. Now just give me the real.
But yeah, all the pretty things don't matter unless you're willing to run through someone's face. That's what it boils down to, right? If we had a $125 million football facility at Holy Cross. We had Theraguns, we had cars, we had jobs, we had everything. It did not matter unless you were willing to melt through somebody's face. And you can give Casey DeAndre and Chris Grotsky some shout outs on those, because we had we lost a game. We put the film on, and that's what we saw. We weren't willing to do the thing, and it changed the entire trajectory of what we accomplished there. So yeah, if I was to give you one thing, I'd say all the pretty things don't matter unless you're willing to run through someone's face.
Love it. All right, Coach. See you same time next week. Appreciate it.
Right. Anytime. Yeah.